Welcome back to the Operators Podcast, Carnage Edition. We are in a period of incredible uncertainty, but today we're here to talk through how do you deal with chaos? How do you manage in uncertainty? Well, we are going to give a lot of really tangible perspectives on how you can lead your organization when you just don't know what the future holds. Before we get started, I want to say thank you to our partners. As always, we could not do the show without you. Fulfill, Northbeam, Sarah's Rich Panel, and Postscript. Thank you guys. And without further ado, on to the show.
Fulfill ad. Let's go. The big pink elephant in the room is the economic climate. No one knows what's happening. We're heading into a tough period for e-commerce brands. Mike shared this on LinkedIn recently. Brands are looking inward, figuring out how to save money while improving their operations and making them more efficient. If you want to cut spending and drive efficiency, use Fulfill. You don't need 5 different tools. So if you're looking to consolidate SaaS, it's a proven, awesome service for your operations. You can use Fulfill. If you're looking to use more AI in operations and accounting, you can use Fulfill. If your EIP is crippling your business, use Fulfill. What is most crucial for every brand out there is to cut costs. I talk about it many times. NetSuite's overpriced. It costs too much to maintain, and they will screw you on a renewal. If you're using NetSuite, you should absolutely move to Fulfill. I didn't even look at NetSuite. I've been on Fulfill for 5 years. It is more efficient when it comes to order management, warehouse management. We do resource planning in there. We do our accounting in there now. They helped us set up a warehouse, a factory, everything else. So thank you, Fulfill. It's been a great partner. Thank you for sponsoring the podcast. And saving money is now even more important than it's ever been. You should look at Fulfill. They can hopefully save you money. Goodbye. Mike, what's going on in your world, man?
Well, utter chaos. It's like, so yesterday morning, I had a meeting, an all hands meeting, where I laid out my thoughts, but most of it was a Q&A. And my goal was to not sugarcoat that, like, this could be an existential threat to most companies that are involved in trade. And even though we have a really strong balance sheet and we have a strong company, we're not exempt from that. I mean, as it stands, this is such a crazy number. In fact, a couple people on social were like, that can't possibly be a real number. So, like, here's the math. We bought like $80 million from overseas partners last year at a tariff rate of, I think today, duty and tariff of 110%. That is an $80 million tax bill. And, you know, we had EBITDA margins in the 20s, which is like unheard of, right? In our industry, to be like mid 20s in EBITDA margin. And like, we couldn't even pay half that bill if it had to happen under the current pricing. And so, like, you don't know whether to just be extremely stressed or to just laugh, because everything, all the numbers are so unworkable. There's a point where you're like, man, the numbers are moving the wrong direction and this is bad. And then there's a point where it's like, these are so far from even solvency that, like, I can't take it seriously because everyone goes bankrupt. Like, nobody runs. Like, if you think about it, no one runs 40% EBITDA margins. And that's probably where your margins would have to be to just easily absorb. I know there's some people with extremely high gross margins that maybe are a little bit less impacted. And on this podcast, we tend to talk about e-commerce companies, which tend to build in more margin. I have a much more omni-channel business that does a lot more stuff in mass retail. No one has 60, 70, 80% gross margins. If you're selling to Walmart, if you're selling to Target, it just doesn't happen. And so, like, everything you see in Walmart is up in the air. We talked to our Walmart buyer. She's like, I'm not sleeping. I'm working around the clock. I have no idea what to do. Like, it's just a disaster, basically. Right now, it's a disaster.
Yeah. Mike, I have a lot of sympathy for you. And or whatever, maybe it's empathy. You taught me the difference. Like, one of the things is like if I've been through it or not, right? Whatever that one is, yeah. I got that for you.
Yeah, empathy is like, I can imagine what you're going through. Sympathy is like, hey, I've gone through something similar enough that I know what you're feeling. And I think in some ways, we've talked about this on the podcast, that like everybody has had at least one or two really hard things in the last few years. But this is like DEFCON 5. Like this is going to like a level that, I mean, I don't think we've seen before.
Yeah. So if sympathy is like imagine, or empathy is imagining, and sympathy is I've been through something similar, what's the one where I'm sitting next to you drinking my own piss trying to survive in the foxhole?
That was a great quote, by the way. What Sean's referencing is the CEO of, I don't know if it was Redfin, it was one of the companies that's involved in homes, and they're like, what if the market doesn't turn? And he's like, well, we dig in the foxhole, we drink our own piss, we drink the blood of others, whatever it takes to survive. And, you know, like, listen, I think the thing that makes this so interesting is that basically that's what China is saying. I read something that they have a 2-character phrase, which loosely translated means eat bitterness. And it's basically that idea, like that kind of exact idea of just eat pain and survive. And that it's part of their thought process in a way that it's really just not with Americans. We are not used to that idea at all.
Okay, so that's my question for you guys. Does America have the resolve to eat the same amount of that China seems to be prepared to?
Well, no, because we're a democracy and we can vote out leaders. Like, it's one thing when it's voluntary pain. It's another thing when somebody else is telling you, hey, I'm basically in charge and there's no elections and you're going to eat this. That's a little bit easier to enforce.
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, we didn't have an agenda for where this is going to go. We could talk like the geopolitical strategies if you guys want, and I could take the other side of it. No, Mike, you don't want to go there.
I'm sick of talking. I don't want to talk about Trump. I don't want to talk because I think it's going to age. I think it's like this stuff is moving so quickly. The intake you have today gets outdated tomorrow. I would rather talk about like, okay, what do you do in extreme uncertainty? What do you do when you think you need more information to make good decisions, but you don't know that you have the time? How do you buy time? How do you delay making decisions that are one-way doors that can't be undone that you think could be the wrong decision?
Okay,
this is what we're dealing with as an industry.
Yeah. And so I'll put myself in Mike's position, right? So I'm a high volume, low margin product who sells in mass retail. And I just got a massive uncertainty tax bill. The first thing I would do, I posted about this on the internet already. Any inbound shipment, you just try to reroute to Canada or Mexico and place in a bond, right? Like there are thousands of warehouses in Mexico who did Section 321, who have a very uncertain future with Section 321 guaranteed to go away for Chinese goods. You place all of your goods in bond. And why do you do that? It's because the tariff rate today is probably the highest it's ever going to be. Once you cross 100%, will we go into 2? It's like, or do you think it's more likely we go to 50 or 30 or 20, right? And you don't want to be stuck with basically unsellable goods or unprofitable goods. You're not going to get a duty drawback, I don't think. Like you're going to pay whatever the tariff rate is, and the government's going to be like, yep, that's what it was that day. It's lower now, right? So I would place all units showing up in bond in Mexico and only bring in what you absolutely have to and pay the tariff rate on minimum viable product. Take all marketing spend to zero. I would raise all MSRPs immediately. Like try to slow volume and extend inventory runway. That's the first thing I would do.
Let's break each of those down, Sean, because I think you really gave 3 different things and they're all important. Like one is that any inventory that's already in the country has just appreciated, it's doubled in value. So if you're looking for a silver lining, if you had, say, $5 million in inventory on your balance sheet, well, that's the equivalent of $10 million today, because that's how much that's replacement cost of that inventory. So you want to preserve that and you got to make that count. Like in some ways, I view that as like the inventory that we already have here is how we buy time. And there's 2 ways that you make that count the most. You mentioned both of them, but I just want to break them apart. One is that before you raise prices, and with us, with e-com, when you have D2C, like you can raise prices and take them down the next day. You know, like Fabletics can throw in a tariff adjustment on their cart. When you sell to mass retailers, when you sell into wholesale, it doesn't really work that way. Pricing is not going to be that dynamic. And so making pricing, wholesale kind of pricing changes has more permanence to it. I would say. Because like just really logistically, like if you tell Target, hey, all these prices are changing, they have to pay workers to go in and change out all the tags in 2,000 stores. And that costs money. And they don't want to do that. And they certainly aren't going to do that and turn around 3 weeks later and change it back. So what do you do before you change all your prices? I think you nailed it, Sean. I think you cut out all the deals, all the promotional spend. You cut your ad spend, which is a de facto price increase that doesn't have quite the permanence of a price increase. Would you guys agree that that's the first lever that you pull?
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's the same strategy you would do when COVID hit or when supply chains get up, right? The first thing you do is, I might not be able to get stuff. I should make sure my stuff I have lasts me so I don't actually run out of everything, right? So it's increasing sales volume. You know, we do this all the time when it comes to, if we have a big launch, you know, we're like, oh, this is going to go really awesome. We're going to spend money on it. But then we actually stop spending marketing dollars because the natural sell-through rate, we'd rather sell them at full price, just naturally through the website, people showing up or whatever, right?
Is that what happened with Power Banks? I'm assuming that you guys, it seemed like Power Banks was a great launch for you.
Oh, Power Banks was the best thing we've ever done in this business, right?
Wow.
So, yeah.
Which, by the way, congrats, man. That's you. I just want to say this. We said before, but like, I think the way that you've transformed your company from a wallet company to like an everyday accessory company is really admirable.
It's super
I think
cool.
it's a great playbook that anybody who is wanting to build their business, look at what Sean's done. They've done it super intelligently. Not everything they've tried has hit, but they've tried a bunch of stuff and they found the right path. And I mean, you've got rings, you've got power banks, you've got luggage. You've just really, it's been impressive to watch.
Yeah. Sorry to derail us. I haven't talked about the power bank thing publicly, but what I'll say is we launch a bunch of stuff. So we launch 52 things a year, basically. Every week we're launching either colors or new silhouettes or new product. We're testing a bunch of different and our company was kind of built around this, we spent the past 2 years building this muscle to actually get those things out the door, right? To actually make them on the product side, get them to the creative side, get them to the marketing team, get the ops orders, whatever, find new vendors. We spent like 2 years building that muscle. And then like the company kind of was built around, it felt like this process of getting things out the door. Like that was the goal. No, the actual goal is every one of those things is just lottery tickets. Like we are just trying to hit the lottery, right? And we built a system to buy as many lottery tickets as possible. And then as soon as you hit one, which takes a year, it took 52 launches to hit one. Then we stop playing the lottery for a year and we just focus on, you know, maximizing the return on that, right? So for real numbers, the power banks in 24 hours did more money than the rings did in 24 hours or the carry-ons did in 24 hours, right? It was a massive 6-figure email. We sent an email and we did multiple 6 figures in power banks, totally shocked all expectations, right? I had to take my power bank order. I'll order hundreds of thousands of power banks now before the end of the year. And we have other launches where I do $2,000, right? It is just, I'm just buying lottery tickets. No one knows what's going to work. So when it does work, now the whole entire company, like, we're a power bank company. We're gonna scale that to probably 8 figures by the end of the year, just like we did with rings, just like we did with travel. It's just trying to find whatever there is demand for. So not to take us off track, we can get back to it. But yes, when we weren't even able to turn on ads. Like we sold all of them in the email, which has never happened to us.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think one of the things, I know we're a little bit far afield, which is actually kind of nice to not talk about tariffs for a second. What I would observe is that there's a lot of commentary around, hey, you just have to launch tons and tons of creative and marketing. And in the e-commerce ecosystem, I think that's, people have come to like kind of accept that. Like, okay, to be successful marketing, I have to launch a lot of creative. What I think you've shown, I think our team has shown this, Matt, you guys do this with Pila, is that you have to have the exact same approach with product. You have to throw a bunch of stuff out there. Like your hit rate will not be 100%. It might even be 10% or 5%. And there is some of this that's a volume game.
Dude, we launched a color that we haven't broken even. Oh, Matt, are you okay? You on fire?
What's going on, Matt? Is there a fire?
They've decided to start testing the fire alarm while we're doing our podcast.
Amazing. All right,
Why not? Like
I'm gonna
this
take us
is
even-
the what is this? This is like tariff land right now. This is what's happening.
That's right. That's the tariff buzzer. Every time it goes off, China's tariffs have increased 50%.
Somebody was
So
on the news.
this is totally random. It's not, again, like we're just totally off. But one of the funniest stories in company history, this was really early on in our relationship with Walmart. And this was during COVID. And so we had a really big sales call with them where we were trying to like close a deal. And so we're doing it via Zoom in the office. I'm not in this meeting. Carson, our chief sales officer, and the rep that's in charge of Walmart. And so they're on the Zoom meeting. And there was like something wrong with the keyboard that we had tied into that computer. So sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So as the meeting's going on, the fire marshal had apparently showed up and sets off the fire alarm in the office. And this fire alarm is going off. And so the person on the other end can't tell what's going on. And Carson is trying to type them a message in Zoom, but the space bar won't work on the keyboard. And so he types out "no real fire" with no spaces. And he's like trying. And so that's like, and basically after like 2 minutes, they finally got the fire alarm and the thing continued. But that's "no real fire" is like become a code word in our business. That's what we'll type when there's a false alarm. "No real fire," no spaces.
Somebody hooked our building fire alarm up to CNBC's headline.
Yes.
And anytime there's Trump or tariff, it just like beeps 3 times.
Wow,
Have you
man.
guys seen those flipper machines that you can like tie into Shopify?
Yeah.
Have you seen these? We have
Yeah.
one of those in our office, and I'm like, I just need to like tie that into the tariff office because, like, you know, it's just like, oh yeah, there you go. There's 15% more. Like, you know, you can follow this in real time.
You never thought that tariffs would move like a stock market? Like,
Dude, hilarious.
you know, you can watch them do this throughout the day.
Yeah, I'm buying
My
tariff
favorite
coin.
part is that it wasn't even like a gradual escalation. It was just kind of like, okay, 53. Oh, 35? How about 50 more? Oh, another 40? Well, let's go to 1,000. You know, like, why not? Why not
Yeah.
go to infinity?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's good. The end state is an embargo. You know what I mean? Like that's like the end state of this. Most brands are leaving money on the table with SMS. Not Ridge. SMS is our #1 revenue driver, and PostScript is the reason why. SMS is an email. If you treat it like email, you're doing it wrong. PostScript gets it. They help brands like ours turn SMS into high margin, high ROI machines. We stopped wasting sends. Okay. We would just randomly blast text to people. That was a bad move. PostScript dialed in our automations and subscriber LTV tracking. Then they brought us more subscribers, and more subscribers equals more cash. List growth isn't about getting numbers up. It's getting buyers in. Then they have AI powered SMS, instant conversions. They call it infinity testing, one of the coolest names in all of SaaS. We use it every time we send an SMS out. PostScript auto optimizes for profit, and we're not getting fined. One SMS compliance mistake is a lawsuit. So PostScript is building for the modern industry to take into account all these ever-changing laws. The bottom line is brands are winning at SMS via PostScript. The results for 2024, Ridge had 1 million opt-ins, okay? We had 500,000 new subs, and we drove, I'm going to tell you guys, over $40 million in SMS revenue, and it's a 100% increase year over year. The ROI is insane, 100x plus ROI on SMS for Ridge. So if you want to try SMS like the pros, like Ridge, check out PostScript today. Thank you guys for being here. Going back to launches, dude, I've launched colors where we haven't made our money back on the creative shoot. Okay, so think about that. Like creative costs $8,000 to get something live. I haven't sold $8,000 of a color yet. So there's massive, wins and gains to be had, but you just have to be able to tolerate the losses. It is the lottery. Most tickets lose, right?
It's a VC model.
Yeah.
It's the VC model.
This is Sean on that sort of like the creative cost of a launch. We put a weird amount of time into lowering our creative costs and automating things because we do so many that like it wouldn't make sense to spend thousands of dollars for every single design we drop. Right. Like, well, that doesn't make sense. Like we have 500 designs right now is live. But there's a lot of stuff that can be done to take so it's like every time you do a product launch, especially if it's colors and whatever, right? There's so many ways to make that like cost almost nothing just with software now. It's freaking awesome.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
one of the things that we've learned is I think it took us a while to learn this about product launches, but that sellouts are a good thing. Like typically you're like, well, when you're sold out and you can't sell it and it can't move the revenue. In our business, it's impossible for any product to meaningfully move our financials for 18 to 24 months. Like we're just too big, like we just the ordering and the whole process. And so we had several product launches where it's like, well, we better buy enough because we don't want to go out of stock if people really like it. And what we've come to realize is like, no, buy a smaller amount and see if there's enough, if it just naturally kind of strikes a chord. And if it sells out and you don't have it for 6 or 7 months, that's fine.
Yep.
But it was a maturity that it took us some time to build because it's counterintuitive. When you're an entrepreneur, like if you have something people want, if you have power banks and people want it, it's like, oh, I better not, have a period where I don't have them. But what you don't realize is like, there's a bunch of Ridge users that saw the power bank email, meant to buy it, didn't get in before they're gone. And they're going to show up whenever those things come back in stock 4 months from now, 6 months from now. That demand's not floating away.
Yeah. And I thought power banks were going to be big, so I placed a big order. I mean, initial order of tens of thousands of units of this thing. It was just bigger than I possibly could have thought, right? But dude, I mean, yeah, I totally agree. You should sell them out because it doesn't turn into money if it's still inventory. So like a lot of times you just get stuck with 200 or something, and you have 50 things you have 200 of. You have to turn that into cash at some point. But let's go.
So can we talk about that? Can we go back to what Mike has started off with? Like, how do you respond to, whatever, call it calamity, headwinds, whatever it is, right? So Mike, you started off by saying like some of the moves, can we bucket them as like, these are balance sheet moves? So it's like, how much cash do I have? What are we doing with it? Like, what are we sitting on in inventory? And just carry that on.
Yeah. I mean, so just to pick up that thread again, the first thing we said is you cut promotion, you cut marketing. And the reason you do that, just like you would on a product launch that's blowing through things, is that when you have a limited amount of inventory, and especially when you have a limited amount of inventory at a lower cost basis than you're likely to ever see again, you want to maximize your contribution margin. If you're going to trade those inventory dollars in, you want to trade them in for significantly more in cash dollars. And then the second side of that is, as you're doing that, you really start to look hard at every single dollar of OpEx that's going out the door. Every software, every subscription, every agreement that you have, has to be looked at, and that's what I think companies are doing first. Is they're pulling back on marketing and they're looking really hard at every dollar of OpEx.
Yeah, so I still think we got to explain that the concept more about decreasing unit velocity. It sounds weird, right? But like, you don't know the future cost of the product you sell, and you don't know the ease of getting that product. So this is what fucked car manufacturers doing during COVID, right? The supply chain became so streamlined that there was like no one held any inventory. It was like you finished a thing, the next day the next part shows up to finish the next thing, right? No one wanted to be stuck holding inventory, and they did that to make cash as seamless as possible, pay out the biggest dividends, whatever. And it worked for 10 or 20 years, this like massive supply chain of parts, until one day you couldn't get the part and then all car production stops, right? So that's one end of the extreme. And then, I told everyone this yesterday in chat, I have a year's worth of inventory on hand. And
yeah,
this is one of those things where I guess I look smart, but in January, I was like, guys, we have to carry less inventory. I want to carry 6 months on hand, not 12 months.
6 is even crazy.
This whole thing is so crazy because I've seen no less than 5 of our decisions that looked smart now look stupid, or that looks stupid now look smart. It is amazing how it's in, like you're saying, Sean, like the thing that looked like the stupidest freaking decision 2 months ago now is like, well, thank God, thank God that we have a year of supply. And it's amazing how like the unpredictability is changing the framing on all these decisions. I want you to bookmark this. Here's the one thing I am certain of. Nobody wants to buy inventory right now. No one is shipping inventory, and we are going to get a massive freaking bullwhip when this is done. It is going to be an absolute supply chain disaster once they get these trade agreements in place, whatever those are, because there is not enough stuff being made right now to supply the demand, short of a depression or something. There's not enough stuff getting made and there's not enough stuff getting shipped. We have seen this movie before. It happened in March of 2020. There was a month where nobody knew what was going to happen, if we were going to have a zombie apocalypse or whatever. Matt's alarm is going off and everybody stopped ordering and everybody stopped shipping. And like, listen, nothing is shipping right now. One thing I was told in one of our mass retailers, everything else on the shelf, they're direct importing. So let's work through what that means. What that means is they're buying it from these companies in China at wholesale, and then they're direct importing it. So in my, let's just take my product category. For us, hey, maybe we're buying a $5 or $6 water bottle that now is going to $10 or $12. Okay, well, that's bad. But what if you're a retailer that's buying that water bottle at $10 and now it's going to $20 or $22? Well, that's totally untenable. You're just simply not going to ship those goods. And I'm telling you guys, there's a massive train wreck that's happening just because of the uncertainty and the unwillingness to ship. And we know what happens when you get that is that whenever this lifts, whenever the uncertainty lifts, there's going to be so much stuff that needs to move. Container prices are going to go to the absolute moon. These factories are going to be inundated with orders and it's going to be a disaster. So I'm just calling it right now. It's happening. It's really hard to predict second and third order effects. This one's easy because we just went through it a few years ago. And so plan accordingly.
I want to go back to the idea. I mean, Matt was like, we're like, yeah, I did something really dumb 2 months ago and now it's going to, be good for my business. And Matt's like, that's my whole fucking existence, dude. Like, yeah, I make shit in rural
5
Canada.
years ago.
Yeah. That's very funny. Cause I mean, Matt shared this, Matt's like the only North American phone case manufacturer. So
dude, like what a dumb decision that was 5 years ago. I'm going to build a phone case factory in North America.
Yeah. He's getting phone calls from Apple being like, hey, can you make all of our phone cases? Like you're the only guy. So
it's weird right now, guys. Like I actually have phone case brands reaching out and saying, how does this work?
Well, Matt and I were texting about this last night. We went all in on being able to make stuff in the country in 21. We invested millions of dollars. And then containers went from whatever, $20,000 to like $1,500. And the RMB got really cheap versus the dollar. And it looked like the stupidest decision ever. And there was a point this year where we were like, should we even be making things here anymore? And now the shoe is completely on the other foot. And it's like, oh my gosh, like some of the inbound we've got is crazy. But it really just shows like, yes, you can be strategic and yes, you can be smart, but it still depends on things outside of your control. Like I don't control container rates. I don't control tariffs.
Yeah. I mean, a genius in a poor position will still look like an idiot at the right time or at the wrong time.
People always say, I'd rather be good than lucky. No, I'd much rather be lucky. It's like there's so much alpha in just being lucky. So, okay, we're talking about you cut marketing because you do not know what inventory is going to show up at what cost. So you want the highest
return.
Yeah, well, I was going to say like the highest weeks on hand, right? So like if you have a hot seller, stop spending marketing on it. You go from 2 weeks on hand to 20 weeks on hand. The other thing is, look, I have a year of inventory on hand of projected sales. What if sales fall 50%? Well, I got 2 years on hand, right?
Yeah.
And if I want my sales to fall 50%, I could do that with probably a 10x MER, right? Instead of struggling to get a 3x MER, I can get a 10x MER. I probably make the same amount of profit over 2 years. Now, does the
and that's the big thing everybody needs to hear is that, what pays the bills is contribution profit. And that it is painfully obvious during a period like this. And when you're doing marketing at a 2 ROAS or a 3 ROAS or whatever, you're mostly investing in the future. It's not like you're making much money now. It's mostly because like, I'm acquiring a customer and they'll come back and buy more stuff or whatever. But nobody's got time for that today. Everybody's just like, no, I need to wring the absolute most I can out of the towel today. And you're making a great point, Sean. Like you could probably take your wallet prices to $2.99 and have 4 years of supply and make the same contribution profit. And you wouldn't want to do that under normal circumstances because your growth stalls out. But when you're not concerned about growth and you're just kind of concerned about viability, like that's the play.
Right. It massively hurts enterprise value, but enterprise value doesn't matter if it goes to zero, right? So it's like,
Probably not a lot of M&A in this environment. I don't think anybody's eager to buy a company that has a uncertainty of 100% plus tariffs over it.
Yeah.
No.
And just, I want to explain that concept. Like, if my sales fall in half, my company's value does go down. But what if sales, I keep my foot on the gas and I just run right to a wall and my company's bankrupt? The value is zero. So would you rather have some value in your company with decreased sales or die, right? It's very obvious the decision there.
Well, and that value is hypothetical. You and I have talked about this, Sean. I feel you coming towards the light side on this. It's like, why sell your company? Valuation only matters if you're going to sell the company. If you're not going to sell the company, the only thing that matters is cash flow. Everything else is a vanity metric, right? And so when you're an operator and you're operating your business, you don't, and you're internally held, it's like, you can just tune out all that noise. I don't care what my valuation is. It doesn't matter. I care about contribution profit and financial health. That's it. And that makes me more resilient to this than a company that's trying to hit certain numbers.
Yeah, I think so just to hit on that for a second from the VC sort of investor, not even VC, just let's call it like the investor side of this. Every conversation I've seen is like, because this is so wide ranging, the message from investors to companies is just survive. Like, this does rhyme with 2020. Like, that's the last time I sort of saw this like unified message, which is like, forget your growth rate, just survive. So you do whatever you have to do.
Well, everybody loses in bankruptcy.
Yes. Yeah. Even
investors
the VC
lose,
model goes under,
operators lose,
all of them lose. Yeah.
Yeah. Employees lose. Everybody loses. So like, this is one place where I think you've got a little bit more alignment among the investor class and the operator class, where it's just like, yeah, right now it's get the foxhole and just stay alive for a few months.
Yeah. Look, and we're going to give you guys more tips, but I've been thinking about my life a lot and I've been trying to rush through it for a long time. And this is just like some philosophy for everybody. When I moved to LA, I had to live in like a flop house with everybody. I've talked about that story a bunch of times. That was like 2015 or whatever, right? And then 5 years after that, there's COVID. And I don't remember much of those 5 years. There's no big events or whatever. And then COVID was this massive event in everyone's life. It's very much a before and after. And this is 5 years post that. So like, my life is, if you think about it in those 5 years chunks, and then in those 5 years, there's a bunch of things in the moment that felt crazy. There was a war in Ukraine. There was obviously everything, fucking Facebook and Apple getting into a fight and fucking up the ad ecosystem. But also remember Silicon Valley Bank imploded. Like, there was a bunch of shit that happened in those 5 years that I think in another 5 years, you won't really think about. This could be one of them that you do. Like, this could be one of those defining moments. And it's cool and interesting to realize that when you're in it. Now, it could be a nothing burger. It could be a Silicon Valley Bank that like, it just goes away, right? Maybe this is just early Trump days and they reach an awesome deal and everyone's really happy. Or it could be a defining, half decade event. So cool to see it in the motion, man. I'm excited. Is your customer service team drowning in support tickets? That was us before switching to Rich Panel. What if your team could focus on conversations that truly needed a human touch? Well, Rich Panel is an AI-first help desk built for e-commerce. We've been with them for a while and we've accomplished 3 things already. 1, we've immediately cut our customer service costs by 50%. That's more features, better support, and instant impact on our top and bottom line. Boom! Savings. The automations didn't compromise customer satisfaction. In fact, we're at an all-time high with a 92% customer satisfaction score. Our customers are happier, our agents are happier, and I'm happier because of the savings. I'm on track to save over $500,000 in CX hiring costs thanks to their AI. Now I can tell Connor to take that money and put it right into Meta. Join the 2,000 7, 8, and 9-figure brands that have switched to Rich Panel. Save money, save time, and improve the quality of your customer support. The Rich Panel team's amazing. They're going to be on Slack with you. They're there to help build custom features to make your life easier. If you want to slash your customer support expenses by 30% and reduce tickets by 30%, go to richpanel.com/demo. richpanel.com/demo. Demo. For the final time, it's richpanel.com/demo. Tell them the operator sent you. Tell them you've never heard of Cody or Jones Road Beauty, that they did not send you. It was the operators. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
I want to share one thing I shared with my team yesterday, and I think it's helpful in a time like this. We've been through some very harrowing moments with Simple Modern. I think that there are 2 or 3 that really stand out in my mind as like, I don't know what happens, and I'd be lying if I said, now obviously they worked out. And like you said, John, it's better to be somewhat lucky sometimes than good. And history is littered with companies that maybe were plenty smart, but they just were unfortunate. But we've survived our difficult periods. And as I've gone through the difficult periods, there have been what's been impressed upon me, and I think has borne out over time, is that it's amazing how little I can control in these difficult periods to some extent, but I do control my reaction to things. And as I look back on those periods, I'm not sure that if I had approached them differently, that they would have even gone differently, but I would be different. And so one of my pieces of advice to everybody is that these are the periods that kind of define you and impact you and change you as a person. And one way you can frame this is, if you want to become a better leader, now is the time. If you want to level up in your decision making, now is the time. That if you want to make your business more efficient or more effective or more focused, now is the time. And that you've got this gift where everybody gets it. So for me, I think when I reflect on the periods of real hardship, I think I see the most growth. And that how you grow as a person, and to your point, Sean, the experiences you take from things, those are actually the things you care about at 50, 60, 70 years old. You're not going to remember what your profit margin was this year, but you will remember this event likely, and you will remember how you reacted to it and how it changed you as a person. And so don't take your eye off the ball. Running your business is one thing, running your life and how you manage yourself is another. And this is an opportunity to level up as a person.
Dude, well said. All right, Matt. Me and Mike been just yapping about it. How are you feeling?
Well, my fire alarm's been going off, so I've got this like blinking, blasting sound while you guys are talking about, to disaster. Honestly, okay. So echoing everything Mike said, sure, that's like really that's wise words. That's somebody who's lived through like past crap, right? The other thing I'm thinking a lot of right now is about is positioning. So every company in a category it has a position relative to its peers. And in these moments, it's actually a nice time to take a fresh look at like, how is your company positioned? How do you think your competition will be either through this or at the end of this? Where are you strong? Where are they weak? Where are they strong? Where are you weak? All those like relative things that I typically don't put a lot of time into, I am starting to think about that. Now, that might be unique to us. Just because of like the Pele case position right now is actually a strong one. Like our supply chain is quite resilient in this environment. So yeah, I think I'm looking at how do I come out of this much stronger than we're going into it. So for however long this lasts, what are the moves that we have to make today or coming soon? Actually, it's probably not today that we can accelerate out.
Mike, cut off by the buzzer. Mike, you're on mute.
I was just going to say, I think the fire alarm is so symbolic of this week.
What a great
so
thing to add to a show.
This is the week.
Yeah. Okay, going back to actual tips, dude. Crushing a DP in the morning. Love to see it, Mike.
This is number 2, guys. It's a multiple Dr. Pepper type of morning. If I'm being honest, it's at least I'm not crushing Celsius or something, like Red Bull, but I'll try and do the less hardcore
also symbolic
stimulants.
of the moment. It's just spectrums of shit, Mike.
Yeah,
dude. Yeah, I mean, I've had an issue with AFib, and it's interesting. Like, both my parents are in psychology. My dad's a psychologist. My mom was a social worker, and so I have amazing coping mechanisms, kind of compartmentalization abilities. But one of the things I've realized about myself is even if mentally I can compartmentalize the stress, that doesn't mean that physiologically I can. And so like my AFib's been acting up and I'm like, well, I don't feel bad, but it's like, my body's like, yeah, well, wake up. You are bad. You do feel bad. You've just found a way to not think about it, but like we're freaking out here.
Yeah. Okay, back to tips. I think we talked about putting your inventory in bond if you cannot pay the duty or you feel like gambling that the duty rate will go lower. Talked about cutting marketing expenses to extend inventory runway as long as possible, right? If that requires sales going down, sales are a vanity metric, right? Like profit's the only thing that matters. Not only is enterprise value a vanity metric, like being like, yeah, I'm actually growing sales. Like that is just dick measuring contests. Okay. The next thing Mike brought up is cutting costs. And I'll share transparently what we did. I mean, we cut 12 roles on 4.2, and I did that for a bunch of different reasons. One is company uncertainty. Two, I think organizations are just going to be smaller in the future.
100%.
Yeah,
because the technology level, like it's just worth reminding everybody, the technology thing we've been talking about is happening in the background, but it's going to powerfully kind of compound on this, I think.
Yeah, totally, man. I mean, I just think I could do more with less people. And also the third thing is I think that people kind of get in the way. Like you end up having people who need meetings, who need coaching, who need, whatever. I mean, they're humans and humans have needs or whatever. And we decided to fire them. I think a couple podcasts ago, I think I could fire 5 people. They got all the way up to 12 and we let go of some, pretty senior leaders in the business. I did it now because I could be generous now, right? Like, let's say all the shit goes bad and I have to penny pinch and I can't pay severance. Well, I got money now, so I'm going to let go of these people, right? I think it's better to be early in these things where you could still be generous.
And deeper than you think. That's always a good piece of advice. It's like, if you're going to cut, don't mess around.
Well, bleeding
deeper
out
than you
where
think.
you just drip it out is really painful for people. And your best people will start to like look elsewhere if it's just like, okay, is this week my turn?
Yeah, totally. So one big cut, that's all you have to do. I took my salary to $0. I mean, if you're a small operator, you're probably already used to making $0, but I'm like, yeah, fuck, I don't need to make any goddamn money. I'm looking at my personal cash on hand. I'm like, I could survive 3-4 years. So whatever, I'll just do that. And the total cuts we got to included some vendors, whatever else, is about $250,000 a month. So I saved $2.5 million, $3 million a year or whatever, right? That was pretty easy to do just off the top. Now, the more radical stuff I'm doing, my Google account suspended. Okay. Like people need to be.
That's amazing. The fact that you on the credit card thing went to the wall. I mean, this is going to the mattresses.
Yeah. And people are like, oh, I negotiate. I'm ruthless, right? It's like, well, are you irrational? That's what it comes down to. I'm like, okay, Google, I owe you $2 million. I'm like, not paying. I'm like, take my fucking credit card. And dude,
I want to see you and Trump in a negotiation against each other because it would be like the immovable objects and the irresistible force.
Well. It would not go well for the rest of us.
Yeah, no. Yeah. But see, it's also you have to recognize your opponent, right? Like the person at Google didn't start Google. They don't fucking care about Google. They're just like some well-paid M&A, whatever, just trying to do their job. So I'm like, oh, I think I could probably be out rational enough to them, right? And like eventually their KPIs are going to get hit that like, hey, you should collect on this money. And I send them emails every couple of days. They're just like photos of my credit card, photos of stacks of cash, being like, hey, I got money. Do you want it? So willing to do whatever it takes. Cause I'm like, yeah, I value the credit card points. I don't want to fucking pay ACH. So give me my goddamn credit card points. It's my right. I'm entitled to that. So yeah, shit like that. I'm willing to, be irrational to get things done. And I challenge everyone else to do that in their business.
So I'll kind of talk about something that is fairly obvious is that everybody is going to look at all their software costs. And we have a lot of great sponsors of the pod that are softwares. The industry needs great softwares. So whether or not, take this for what it's worth. I think there's a way to negotiate with good software providers that is equitable and is partnership oriented. And I think that there's a way that's really cutthroat. And I'm sure that there'll be some of both. I have told my people, we got to look at every single software we spend money on. And if it's I wrote a post where I talked about how I thought we're in the mow your own lawn era. And one of the things I meant by that is, that if there is a software or a service that makes your life a little bit easier or makes things go a little bit faster, but you could do it yourself, like that stuff's going to all go in-house. It's just going to have to. And Then there's softwares that are more essential, like the Fulfills, where it's like, no, this is like the backbone. Like literally, we could not run our company without an ERP. Doesn't matter how much you want to. And I think as you're talking to partners, first of all, you got to sort the softwares and the expenditures you have on OpEx into these two buckets. What are nice to haves that would make my life easier, but probably don't make sense in this era? What are the things that I have to have? But then with everybody, you're trying to take a partnership mindset of like, hey, how can you partner with us? For example, like I'll give a plug to Van Group. We've worked with Van Group on some of our stuff with our website, and we have them on a retainer. Xavier and his team are amazing. They did Hexclad's website. They did our website redesign. They've done several really big brands. So this is a plug for them. They are people worth working for. But we have them on a retainer. And I told Brian, hopefully this isn't released before Xavier hears this, but you got to go back to Xavier and you got to say, hey, we got to pause this. We got to pause this retainer for at least 3 or 4 months, because it just doesn't make any sense for me to be paying these rates for incremental upgrades to our website when I'm trying to conserve cash. I'm not ending the relationship. I want to continue to work with you. You do great work, but I don't think it makes sense right now. And so these are conversations that are really going to matter. But I do think how you treat people now ends up mattering later when things get easier and when things get better. And I do think people that when the chips are down and it's really hard, have a partnership mentality, they end up reaping what they sow one way or another.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. Also, and Matt, if you can talk, feel free to jump in and cut me off at any point.
No, go for it.
Like, okay, so vendor negotiations. It's so hard for me to beat that drum because I beat that drum so often. I was doing that in good times, right? But it's like, okay, what do you do in bad times? One, you have to make the cuts for your team. Every team looks around and says, there's so much bloat, right? But then when you ask them to look at the bloat in their organization, they're like, no, my team actually, I need more people. Like, I actually need more domain. I need more spec.
Yeah, every department sees the bloat in other departments is my, it's like, oh, well, over there, but no, we actually might need another person. It's like, okay, come on.
Yeah, that is a tale as old as time. Okay, so what I did to make my cuts is I put a list of 20 people and I'm like, I'm going to cut these people. Every executive can protect one of them or give me other names. Right. And, you have to just negotiate and you're working with a 12 actually, I think I said that the dollar mandate is what I ended up doing. I'm like, I have to cut this much money. This is how I out of
that's how I do money. It. I give them a dollar amount.
And then it's just, it's clear as day. It's like, I either hit it or I didn't. And I'm like, the objective is to hit this. Right. So yeah, you have to be the driving force there. If you let people do it, everyone's like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to give up. We're not going to use Otter AI to record our meetings anymore. We'll just use the free Google one. And I just saved $8. I'm like, motherfucker, $8. It's like, that's not like, if there's bloat in SaaS, and also people do not like going back to vendors and renegotiating prices. You probably have to do that as the CEO. I sent you guys a screenshot. I got 33% off my legal fees. I was just like,
yeah, that was amazing. I shared that with my entire team. And the one positive, you made the point, Sean, but like nobody likes to be the bad guy and they won't do it voluntarily, which is kind of why, crap rolls up to you, is like, as a CEO, you're just going to have to be the bad guy. I told my team that yesterday. I said, I am going to be in wartime mode and I am going to have to be unlikable some of the time. And I'm just telling you now, like, I'm going to do things. I'm going to say things that are not typically what you'd hear from me because I just have to, because I have responsibility to the organization.
Dude. And yeah, no one likes being the bad guy. The other thing, like, this is why venture-backed companies fail. No offense, Matt.
No.
This
Dude,
is
why, on both.
Yeah, this is why private equity companies fail. It's because nobody cares about the dollars, right? Like, every dollar we spend is mine. Okay, and I just took my salary. Yeah, I just took my salary to zero. So I'm like, what the fuck do you mean you're spending 8,000 of my dollars on this fucking photo shoot? I'm like, God, that's my money, right? And so no one's going to defend your money like you. It's why, financial advisors get a bad advice. Nobody cares about your money like you, right? So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to fight for every fucking dollar. And I will be irrational. I'll be unlikable. And I will send vendors. I'm like, yeah, I know you did that work for us. I do not value it. I'm not going to pay you. What are you going to do about it? And that's a shitty person to be, a shitty position to be. It's the opposite advice Mike is giving you, right? But I have to get value for the dollars I'm spending because dollars are harder to come by right now.
So running an e-commerce business at scale isn't just about great products and marketing. It's about precision. And when you're operating at a high level, 99.9% accuracy stops being nice to have and becomes non-negotiable. That's why I'm excited to talk about our experience working with Ceres Analytics. They've given us real visibility into the numbers that matter. Things like product level COGS, supply chain costs, inventory optimization, all of our marketing metrics. That's just the start. We're estimating 2 to 5% efficiency boost across the board, improving customer retention, making our marketing dollars work harder, and ensuring we're operating smarter as we're getting bigger. These aren't just minor wins. They compound over time to make a huge difference in profitability. But what I really love, the cultural shift this brings. When teams have clarity on the data, collaboration improves. Finance, marketing, and operations aren't just working in silos anymore. They're making decisions together with the same source of truth. It's not just about insights. It's about execution. I talk about this all the time, execution. So if you're scaling your e-com brand and need that kind of accuracy and efficiency, you need to talk to Ceres Analytics. It's been a game changer for us.
Let me give another bucket here. Whenever this abates, and listen, guys, we're not going to live here. Trade with China can't go to zero. No. I think that's literally like people would probably starve. Like really bad things would start to happen. But I think you're going to have tariffs. It's not going to be as cheap as it was before whenever this resolves. But it might take a while. It might take a few months. But with that said, I'll tell you one thing. With our manufacturing partner, which is a great partner, great partnership, what they'll tend to do is they provide a lot of different services to us. Like when we go to China, they put us up in a nice hotel and they take us and we do all these things. Like the last time I was in China, I ate at 2 Michelin restaurants, right? Something's paying for that. They send us 50,000 samples a year, 50,000, but they don't charge us for them. But they do, obviously. Like they just don't charge you for the sample. They roll it into your unit cost. And we're going back to our manufacturer and it's like, we've got to cut out costs. You tend to kind of just do whatever we ask you to do and then kind of roll it all up into this quoted price. Well, we've got to come in to your P&L and say, what are all the ways that you're spending money? We don't want you spending money anymore. Another example of this is that what they've communicated is because we do so many SKUs, they're a lot less efficient. And again, this just kind of gets rolled up and aggregated in our pricing. So our team can be like, it's fine to have 2,000 SKUs, but it's actually making COGS 10 or 15% more expensive without us realizing it. And I need to come in and be like, no, guys, we're going to be at 400 SKUs because we are paying for this complexity. And so that's one thing that's maybe a little bit counterintuitive is partnering with your manufacturer and saying, okay, walk me through everything you spend money on. And I want to cut out everything that's aggregating into my unit costs to get these unit costs down.
Complexity is actually a great, umbrella to stick a lot of cuts under. So like another one would be to go after channels or markets that are inefficient because they're new and they're not mature. Right? Like if you're launching into retail,
they're just nominal.
They're nominal. That's what I mean. Like they're just not.
We
they're
sell
not
to just about everybody, and I can tell you that the Grim Reaper is coming for a few of these channels. Like if you're a credit risk, and you're making me $300,000 in contribution profit a year, you're on notice. Like if you're not ordering, if you're hard to work with, if I have to have 3 people messing with you, anyway, I think you're right, Matt. One of the things that we're kind of dancing around though, that's worth saying is that you've got to make all these cuts, but what you don't want to do is you don't want to kill investment because then when this thing does come back, you don't want all of the, you don't want to stop new product development, even though that costs money. You don't want to cut people that are going to be necessary and be the engine to grow when things kind of get back to normal. And that's the balance, is how do you cut really aggressively on all the costs that you can spare with making the minimal harm to your ability to invest and grow long term?
Yeah, what you're trying to optimize, you're hitting the brake right now, but you're needing to remember where the gas pedal is so that you can accelerate out of the curve.
Yeah, it's like if you make the car lighter by throwing the engine out and throwing out your, the gas pedal, it's like, yeah, it'll take longer probably for your car to hit zero, but also like you're never going to be able to reaccelerate.
Yeah.
You don't want the famine to stunt your growth, right? You have to have enough calories coming in that you still get some height on you. Let's talk about the simple. So I'm doing both the things you guys just said. One, I'm shutting down my Hong Kong warehouse and I'm stopping to serve, Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, those markets out of that warehouse. It's just like, it's a growth engine for us, but just like probably not worth the incremental dollars spend complexity that we have to do. So I'm shutting down a Shopify market and a warehouse. I'm doing all that stuff, right? So Matt, I'm on your tip. And then Mike, I don't think people understand the cost of complexity, right? Because
no
one, gosh, preach, Sean. My CFO, this is his main talking point, is that we don't understand what things cost when they cost things other than dollars. When they cost more overhead hours or when they cost complexity, the human brain isn't able to comprehend it.
Yeah. And so you're like, we have 2,000 SKUs, right? And the business is built on 2,000 SKUs. And if you cut 10% of them, you're like, oh my God, I've lost 4% of revenue. Like, how are we going to make up for that? That's pretty good growth. No, but the cost of complexity, your business should probably be 20 silhouettes, each silhouette coming in 15 colors, right? That's under 400 SKUs. And by doing that, you already do massive fucking volume. Your volume goes up 30% when you do that. And then ornamentation is done stateside on a customization level, right? So you could still have this artificial newness, is what we call it at Ridge.
Yeah.
And you could probably get your COGS down 30% doing that. Like, it could actually be fucking massive because the supply, then it's like they're just running all day, all night, making the one bottle.
I think that's like why I'm getting more optimistic and more excited is we talk like growth is this kind of linear thing, but once you accept that that's not how growth really works. And especially once you accept like you're going to have a big down year, probably no matter what. And we're going to have a down year. Like, I know it because we're not buying enough to not have a down year. That once you accept that, it's actually pretty freeing. And I'm kind of starting to come to the conclusion that just like every few, you stay in growth mode, and then every few years, you should just 80-20 the business. You should just lop off the worst 20% of your revenue, take a step back, and then regrow from that new base. And this is giving us, we're 10 years in, this is our 10-year birthday this year. And it's like, man, what a great opportunity to just kind of, over 10 years, a lot of just stuff accumulates, a lot of projects, a lot of processes. It's awesome to be able to come back to the business with a first principles mindset and say, okay, we're going to go backwards to go forwards. So like, let's make decisions. And I feel incredibly freed to now come and act some things that probably should have been axed a while ago. Maybe it's poor leadership on my part, or maybe this is just how it is. Like your Taiwan, example, like maybe it just, every business is going to kind of bloat and creep until there's an existential, threat that makes it make the hard decisions. So I think it actually is going to make us much healthier. I think we're going to come out the other side, like you said, Sean, much more focused and tighter. It's just, there's just pain in the short term.
Can I want to give another, I think on this topic, there's like another thing that I would think is good advice. I got it during COVID, which is, so right now there's a lot of pain, right? And everybody's going to feel it at a different time. So like some people have massive amounts of containers hitting shores today. We're recording this on April 9th. And they're going to just get these bills and they're going to feel that pain right away. Some brands are actually doing really well right now in sales. Like they're catching tailwinds, they're doing whatever. If you're one of the people who's doing well right now and you're not feeling the pain, don't confuse that with positive momentum that's going to last, right? Because what you don't know in these bigger macro shifts where it's everybody is affected in some way. So even if you're doing okay right now, say, like I know a couple brands where sales are just ripping in March and April, right? They're having a great Q1 start to Q2. Don't plan on that continuing. Do not make new investments in the business.
There's a lot of
errors.
risk.
There's a lot of risk if you think that's going to continue.
In COVID, a lot of the companies that it basically put in the ground were the companies that did the best at the very beginning. And that's unique because like consumption patterns changed and lockdowns and whatever, but there is something instructive there. And to your point, Matt, here's a really easy way. Like there's a friend, Baseball Lifestyle is a brand that's absolutely ripping right now. And they're like, what are we not thinking about? And it's like, well, the only danger when you're really ripping in a period like this is that the demand, like if the economy goes -5 or -10%, you can be building inventory and trying to ramp right into a downturn. And that's obviously a problem. So like, I think that there are going to be some different winners and losers over the next year. And like you said, Matt, I don't think you can straight line extrapolate that out.
No.
Let's talk about Jambies. Okay. Jambies was a COVID darling. I think they did, $0 to $5 million. And what they were is, it was like really comfortable shorts and t-shirts for working from home, right? It was like pajamas you could wear outside. That was the whole idea.
Yeah, they're great. I still have some.
Yeah,
they're
maybe
great.
they got bigger.
Great product.
Yeah, I mean, maybe 10 million, something like that. Bankrupt. They are bankrupt. They went through a bankruptcy. I'm sure they got sold off for nothing. I'm sure the founder got fucking screwed. I've talked to the guy a couple times, but I mean, that story's public because when you go bankrupt, it's all public. That is an example of crushing it at the beginning of COVID from $0 to $5 or $10 million in a year, maybe 2 years, whatever, and then going bankrupt. And it's because of that seesaw, the bullwhip, whatever you want to call it. Doing well now is not an indication of doing well forever. Doing bad now is not an indication of doing bad forever, right? Like COVID was very middle of the road for us. And sales are good right now at Ridge. They could totally get bad. Like I'm probably, we're talking about this type of stuff. I'm actually very cool headed about it because I've actually probably been the most drastic. I've made the most cuts. I've done the most hard shit, but I want to do that in March. You know what I mean? So like even if sales are good right now, it's like, yeah, that's awesome. Like I'm very much prepared for them to be bad.
It's a great point. I mean, I think the larger way of saying what you're saying, Matt, is that it's so uncertain right now that just like that idea of UNI's manufacturing that maybe looked not smart, now looks, brilliant. And Sean's wallet, weeks of cover, looked not smart, now it looks brilliant. That this thing is going to have more twists and turns that's going to reframe everybody's competitive positioning. And we're not sure exactly how that's going to look.
Yeah, man. I wrote a memo to my board last night. I'll send it to you guys. Actually, I'll drop it in group chat. And I'm a tale of two cities, like I've got Lomi 3 coming in June. I'm slow rolling that because I actually have no idea what it's going to cost me. So like new product launch, like I don't know what the cost of this is going to be. So how the hell am I supposed to set the price? We got a pricing conversation today with our biggest retail partner, Costco. So like there's so much uncertainty in the Lomi business. Now Lomi this year was a transition to a new device. So like, okay, I can look at that and say it was already a weird year because I'm deprecating 2 versions, launching a new one, fine. And on the other hand, I've got Pillowcase, which is in a really good position and is just like, it's ripping. So I actually find it more difficult when you've got like big macro uncertain times, like call it a recession, call it whatever, right? COVID, these things that kind of hit everybody. And if you're catching some tailwinds and you're doing well, I find navigating under those circumstances in these times actually a little more difficult because you have, there's more variables and it's easy to have like forced errors, right? Because like now I'm trying to figure out, okay, what are my moves? I do have tailwinds. What should I do? Or do I just like sit back and do nothing?
I think the biggest risk is just like feeling like you need to do something. Like yeah, that's when the world feels crazy, it's like, I got to do something. And it's like, honestly, we were joking about this in my office. Like there is a chance that what we should do is just go play golf for a couple of weeks. I mean, that's what Trump's doing. I mean, it's like, and he's the one initiating all this stuff. Like at some point, like there's more chance that we are just going to make an unforced error than you're going to have some brilliant insight,
Totally.
Well, dude, and we've just said the stuff we thought was smart ended up being stupid, and stuff we thought was stupid ended up being smart. So our ability to call the future is, I mean, at best 50-50. But Matt, going back to the first tip.
That.
Oh, sorry. What did you say?
No, go for it.
You have new loan showing up. You don't know what the cost is going to be. Great example of landing them in bond in Canada and then waiting to import them to America. That is a good example of like, we don't know what the tariff rate is. We'll pay the tariff rate as soon as
I have that benefit. Like we have a warehouse here that we can bring inventory in if we have to. But the reality is it actually might make more sense for me to just delay the launch by 2 months or 3 months or 4 months. Like why pay for inventory if I can't even really sell it profitably into the market that I want to sell it into?
Yeah.
Right. And this is like another, like an operating principle in these times. Like patience is a massive advantage if you can practice it in these times. Like Sean, your note on like, you're like, I can go without getting paid for a while. It's just, you're playing a longer game. And I think the younger the brand, the younger the company, forget just consumer, the younger the company, the younger the entrepreneur, I think ego is the hard thing to check in this. Like you're used to growing. You're used to just like pushing it. This may not be the time to do that.
Totally, man. Yeah, I think that's good advice.
Quick break from the pod. We are talking Northbeam and their new release of Clicks and Views Enhanced. If you're like us and you use Northbeam as your source of truth, amazing. If you don't, you should check them out. But if you are on the platform, they are now putting out a views enhanced model for attribution. I think this is a pretty big shift in the platform. I'm pretty excited for it. If you have run anything that is very impression or view based, so like TikTok, YouTube, television, these platforms have been notoriously difficult to track in Northbeam and anywhere else. It drives companies like ours nuts. I'm very stoked for this release from Northbeam. They are now taking like click data, which is your source of truth, and they are layering on impression data and doing whatever black magic Northbeam does to give you a better view into the performance of your ads. I love this. I can't wait to check it out. I think everybody else should too.
I got two last pieces of advice. Well, actually, I have one piece of advice, and I got some story. So I shared that I got a 33% discount on legal. Debt is leverage. Okay. So people use those terms interchangeably. Oh, I put leverage on it. Oh, I have debt on it. Right. It goes the other way. If you owe somebody money, it is leverage. Like you have leverage in that negotiation. So I didn't pay my legal bill for 2 or 3 months. Okay. And the way the legal, like, you know, if you run a law firm, at the end of the year, you basically write off 10% of your billable hours, like just to clients who aren't going to pay you or went bankrupt or whatever, right? So there's a rush to collect money at the end of the year. And so I told my legal team, I'm like, or, you know, this is an outside firm. I'm like, hey, I'll pay you all up front right now, but I want 50% off. And they're like, we can't give you 50% off. I'm like, okay, I'll settle for 33% off. And they're like, okay, deal. Bam, immediately off the rip. I saved like, it was only a couple months. So it was like 25 grand, but owing people money is leverage, right? So debt is leverage. Maybe not, don't try to fuck over your vendors, right? If you love them, have a good relationship, but it's the way the world works is that dollars become more rare. So that's a piece of advice.
People are going to be in a negotiating mood because they get it. I think at the very beginning of this, like when the 10 and 20% tariffs rolled out, I was like, man, I'm stressed. And people, like, I would tell people about it that weren't in the industry. And it was kind of like, you could tell they kind of understood, but not really. Everybody understands right now. Like, it's actually interesting. Like, for the first time, I feel like people like understand it's an absolute dumpster fire. People that have no involvement running a business, no connection to e-commerce or consumer packaged goods understand, hey, this feels like a dumpster fire. And so I do think there's a unique moment in time where Sean and I have different approaches, but whether you take kind of more of the scorched earth approach or you take a different approach, I think you should be having conversations with everybody about, hey, I need help because right now my business is imperiled by things that are outside of my control. And I think people are generally sympathetic to that. And, you know, you have not because you ask not is kind of like, it does not cost you anything to have those conversations. If you want to do something, start with those conversations. How can you help me? You know,
dude, And dude, shout out, I use Brand Access to like run my international markets, and it cost me like 20 grand a month, and they got bought my passport, and I'm like, guys, I need like a 6-month reprieve on this, right? Like the EU is getting fucking roasted. They gave me a fucking deal. So shout out Good Partners. Good Partners exist out there. K&L Gates is like the law firm that I fucking beat the hell out of for that discount. Now here's a story to end it. We talked
You're
about
also more likely to use them in the future, by the way. Like,
Absolutely.
I want to emphasize that when there's real partnership, like, hey, I'm in a pinch. Can you help me? And they're like, yes. And it's like, great. I'm going to remember that in the future. If you screw somebody over, don't come back to them in the future because they're not going to want to work with you. And that's why I think the idea of pausing on software that you like and you want to use, but you can't afford now is very different than just being like, yeah, we're yanking our business. So it is important how you do it.
Yeah. And on the pausing software, you could also just ask for a 12-month billing deferral. Be like, hey, look, I'm going to use you. I have to get through this right now. Can I get a 6-month pause of payments, right? Or like a reduced cost for 6 months, and I'll make it up for it on the back end. If they're venture-backed software, they would really want to do that. They don't want to show churn. They want to say it's still an active client, and then just have an accounts receivable bucket that fills up. So you can do that too. We talked about cutting down stuff, the cost of complexity, right? I'm shutting down my Hong Kong warehouse. Mike might shut down SKUs. I totally shut down everydaycarry.com. So I spent $1 million buying that thing. And, it made money the first 2 years. And then it got to a point where, like, because of SEO and because of like the shift towards short form video, like it just wasn't profitable. And also I'm like, bro, I should just be focused on selling wallets, rings, luggage, and now power banks. I shouldn't have meetings about a content website or like how to integrate the content website and how to get juice out of this thing. And I like the category. I like the website. I like the content they put out. So we let go of the founder of Everyday Carry and the team. And then I said, you can buy it from me for $1. Essentially, you can have this thing. I spent $1 million on it. I'll take the tax write-off. It can just be yours. So I think he's going to do that. So yeah,
that's
dude,
awesome.
That is one of those things where the cost of complexity, that is me admitting I fucked something up as a CEO of this business and be like, whatever, dude, I'll continue. I'm at least I made the right decision now.
Do you guys have, I guess, so there's channels, there's markets, products, right? So like there's certain products that you can cut. Any other areas for operators that you can think of that they should look at for complexity to cut? Like that 80-20 thing, Mike, I think is like to 80-20 your business is just brilliant advice. But like are there any other big ones that they should look at?
You're on
muted,
mute.
Mike.
Sorry, I mute because I chew on ice and stuff, and I don't want you guys to have to listen to that. I think another area that we've talked about, and I'll take it back to the technology thing, is technology is obviously going to reshape the way that people do their jobs. Is it Toby? Yeah, Toby sent out a memo to all of the Shopify employees. If you haven't read it, it's worth reading. It's about basically
So
like
good.
the expectation is you are going to integrate AI or you are going to be out. And one thing that happens over time, I've seen this in our business, is you had a business problem in 2018 and you developed a process of how you would address that business problem. And that process has worked. But now it's 2025. And if you were going to design a process today, you would never design that process to work that way. Instead of touching 7 people, it might touch 2. Instead of, going through Excel and NetSuite, you could run it all through ChatGPT or whatever. And I think that that's probably another opportunity that's like a form of cutting. How do you go back through all the processes that your organization does and streamline them? Like, how do you minimize the number of human hours? That doesn't necessarily mean that you're reducing jobs right now, but if you reduce complexity, this is what Sean was saying, if you reduce complexity, if you reduce the hours needed to run the business, that is going to translate into efficiency one way or the other.
We did an exercise called a RACI matrix.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever see these, Mike? Responsible, accountable, whatever.
I think I think that's a super helpful. Well, why don't you break that down? Because this is new to me in the last couple of years, but it's a really helpful way of thinking about who should be in what information loop.
I think RACI is RACI. It's like responsible, accountable, collaborated, or collaborative, who's
Uh-huh.
collaborating on it, and then
And
who's informed.
Mhm.
I think, and then
That's
kind
right.
of what we did in our Pila case business, because the design machine is very complicated. We mapped out every single job to be done in that machine, and it was like 147 or 167 steps. Like these are all the things that have to be done to take an idea all the way through to we're selling it, to we're shipping it, and like, you know, turning it into a product. And we put that into a RACI matrix. And then I want to do this for the entire company now. Just look at all the jobs to be done, right? Who's accountable, who's responsible. Who
Yeah.
needs
So
to
let's
be
break out
informed.
what each of those means. Responsible means this is
Like you're
this
doing
is
the work.
directly your responsibility to do the work. Like we if this goes poorly, you're the one that's being held directly responsible. Like this is your job to do this thing.
Yeah, pretty much. And then accountable is like you're, you know, whatever, you're accountable. I don't know another term to use for accountable. So the cool part of that exercise, and kind of why I brought it up, is it showed us all of the areas in the business where we're wildly inefficient in what we do. Right. So like those 147 steps, I think there was like 7 or 8 of them where if we made those more efficient, likely using technology, automation of some kind, we could improve velocity in the business. Right. Now, and improve velocity for us was priority number 1, but like the other part was just improve profitability. So I'm only bringing it up because if you're not sure how to look at a company top down and like do what we're talking about, that RACI matrix exercise of like just looking at every job to be done can actually be pretty helpful.
Well,
It's
and
very
one of the ways
simple.
that I think it's really helpful, Matt, is actually on the back half of that, the consulted and informed, because what happens a lot of times where the inefficiency is that there just end up being too many meetings and too many opinions, too many cooks in the kitchen, right? So once you have who's responsible and kind of accountable, then you're able with this kind of consulted to say like, well, who are the people that it's not really their decision to make, but you at least need to get their input. So consulted is kind of like, who are the people where if you're not getting at least their input, then you're not really doing your job. But they're not making the decision. You're making the decision. You're responsible, but they better be consulted. You better get their perspective before making that decision, because otherwise you don't have all the information. And then the informed piece is like, who are you just telling? This is what we are doing. And they might have opinions about it. They might disagree. They might want to go a different direction, but that doesn't matter because they're informed on this particular project. And there are certain things. Product dev is a really big example of this. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone's going to have an opinion. The most junior person in your organization is going to have an opinion. And if you don't really clearly define where they are in the RACI matrix, then they can start to think, well, I need my opinion to be heard because I really think it should be like this or like that. And it ends up creating a lot of wasted motion, and it really slows things down. And so you can kind of streamline the amount of communication and the communication, how communication should be weighted. And then make sure that everybody knows what they're supposed to be getting done, and and when things are coming and all of that stuff. So I agree.
Also,
I think it's a helpful thought.
It was eye-opening because we also had stuff that we were doing that we didn't need to do anymore. Right. It's like there were certain jobs that were being done. We're like, man, this doesn't even add any value into this process. So like, let's just cut it. And then there was other jobs that were being done where they were just like, they've been done the same way for 3 years. And we looked at it and we're like, well, we have better systems here. We have more information here. We have better trust in this partner. Why are we waiting? Like for product dev, it's like, why are we sending samples around for every design that we drop? They're always the same now. Like we only started that process because at the time we had inconsistency. Now we're consistent. Let's just remove it. So
it's kind of like
is a great
vestigial.
tool.
It's like in nature, animals sometimes will have what they call vestigial organs. And vestigial is like at one point they had this piece of their body and it did this thing, but now it's like it doesn't do anything because that over time and natural selection and whatever, like the animal doesn't need that thing or it doesn't need that process. And so it's just they call it a vestigial thing. Some of the organs even in the human body are like this. And that in the exact same way, as your organization grows and evolves, just processes and ways of approaching things just become vestigial. But if you don't call that out as a leader, they just persist. The inertia
Yeah.
is always to do things the way that they have been done.
Yes, sir. Anyway, that's my last tip. That's all I got.
Well, you made it to the end. You are now a true friend of the operators. Some other friends of the operators: Northbeam, Fulfill, Postscript, Ceres, Rich Panel. 5 softwares, 5 sponsors, 5 softwares I actually use and pay for, and I was using and pay for before they started paying us for the podcast. Thank you for sponsoring the podcast, all 5 of you guys. Thank you for making it to the end. Thanks for being here. Talk to you later.